Because the organic numbers aren't there anymore, they've pivoted to a manufactured hot take strategy just to stay relevant. The goal isn't insight, it's provocation. They're chasing viral moments by saying things so deliberately outrageous that the outrage itself becomes the engagement. It's a formula, and once you recognize it, it's hard to unsee. The most recent example is their take on Michael Jackson's Thriller. And if you've watched them long enough, you already know how this kind of segment tends to open. Before dropping a take that has no business existing, they'll set the table first. Something like, MJ fans are basically cult members, you can't have a real conversation with them. It sounds like a disclaimer, but it's actually a shield. By framing the audience as incapable of rational thought before saying anything substantive, they give themselves cover to follow it up with something completely indefensible, and then position themselves as brave, clear-eyed truth-tellers being attacked by an unreasonable mob. It's not an argument, it's a structure designed to make bad takes look like courage.
As we close out the last super chat, Chip Osario says, Michael was so much fun. My 15 and my 11-year-old danced all night. They love MJ. What a legend. That is a fact. Great time.
Yeah, I can't believe y'all let Michael get away with grabbing his crotch, turning his head, and screaming like that in public.
Save it for the Patreon. If you want to go on the Patreon, today's a great day. Tomorrow we drop the episode. It's a great week for Patreon, though. If you're interested.
And it's so crazy, too, because, like, Mike fans are like sycophants. You can't say nothing critical about Mike. You can't have a regular convo about Mike.
I'm a pretty huge fan.
You're good. You're good, though. You're good.
You could Gene
I had an
Heights.
argument with somebody yesterday about Thriller.
About the song?
No, about the album. And I was like, what does Thriller mean? Like, what does it mean? And they were like, it's Thriller. I was like, okay, what's the album about?
It doesn't have an
They
album.
were like, it doesn't have to have a meaning. It's the biggest album of all time. I was like, okay, so it's the McDonald's of albums. All right, cool.
Wow, you going McDonald's album?
It's just giant, sold, mad. All right, it's great.
Nah, beat it. It's the Big Mac. Thriller's the McDLT. And the Paul McCartney joint is just a hot bucket
That's
of
the
shit.
McRib.
That's the McRib. Nobody wants it. But nah, Ebro's wild. Thriller's a great album. It's not off the wall. It's a great album.
It ain't off the wall.
But it's a great album.
Phenomenal
Got
album.
3 ones you don't really like, but the
And they're together, too, so it's an easy skip.
easy skip. But when you get to Want to Be Starting Something, Human Nature, Baby Me Mine, it's got,
Pretty Young Thing.
what? That's
Well,
not.
okay. We'll conclude the show.
And what was this profound, hard-hitting critique? That Thriller, literally the best-selling album in recorded history, isn't actually that good and contains 3 consecutive skips? Let that sink in for a moment. This is a 9-track album. They're claiming that 1/3 of the greatest pop record ever made is filler worth skipping. The math alone should have stopped them. When you actually pull up the track list, the argument collapses immediately. Ebro claimed the supposed skips were conveniently clustered together, making them easy to bypass. But then, later in the same episode, Rosenberg starts enthusiastically naming tracks, Wanna Be Startin' Something, Human Nature, PYT, and Ebro is right there agreeing, calling them amazing, calling them classics. So if he loves the front of the album and he loves the back of the album, where exactly are these 3 tracks in a row that nobody should be listening to? He couldn't name them because there was nothing to name. The take was constructed on the spot, designed to spark a reaction, not to reflect any genuine listening experience. That is cloud chasing in its most transparent form. Go after the biggest names, Michael Jackson, Drake, because the backlash generates clicks, and the clicks justify the strategy. Which brings up another moment that said everything. They recently had Hassan Piker on the show, someone whose entire platform is built around politics, global policy, and working-class issues. But instead of engaging with any of that, Ebro and Rosenberg spent the bulk of the conversation trying to steer things toward DJ academics and Drake versus Kendrick beef. It was desperate in a way that was almost uncomfortable to watch.
working class's interests first. And I think that's what a lot of people are threatened by nowadays. And that's why you see all these like heinous smears and attacks coming from the Republican side that many Democrats are leaning into as well, because they feel like they're losing their grip of power.
So prepare us after this interview. How much hate are we going to get?
It's a tremendous amount.
Really?
Going forward, people will always be like, why did you have this guy? Here's a million different things that is impossible for you to find the context of. Boom, 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 boom. He said this, he said that.
But we have what you said here, though.
But it won't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Not with the clip economy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that I sat in front of you and you took accountability for being a white guy who doesn't quite, get all of the racial nuances and are not anti-black.
Yeah, that doesn't matter at all.
Doesn't matter.
Because I had a conversation.
Doesn't matter that we sat here and you talked about all your Jewish friends and how you have a Jewish friend group. And
no, they'll say, oh.
Of course.
Yeah, by the way, come on.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, Jewish friends.
Yeah, right.
You have a black friend.
Yeah.
I don't even.
That's why I teed it up like that.
Yeah, perfect.
But that's why I don't even play with that. Like, I don't even talk about that at all. I'm like, no, these are my opinions, because I know everyone's gonna be like, nah, it's bullshit, regardless.
Right. The checking you try to justify.
Well, listen. Similarly, not quite as serious. Drake fans don't believe that I'm a Drake fan.
Yeah, no matter what he says.
No matter what I say.
Wow, that's
just because during the battle he got washed.
That's a real struggle for you.
It's hard. He lives with it every day.
Okay.
Yo, the comments are crazy.
Did you weigh into Drake and Kendrick at all?
I definitely sided with Kendrick.
Why?
Sure.
Why definitely? Why you saying it like that, bro? Hey, hang on.
What, you agreed?
They had a political commentator sitting across from them, someone who spends his platform discussing systemic change, economic inequality, and global policy, and the direction they chose to take it was, so Drake's kind of corny, right? Hassan looked like a man doing the mental math on how quickly he could wrap up and leave. He came in to talk about movements and institutions, and they're pulling him into a conversation about rap beef. It wasn't edgy, it wasn't entertaining, it was just visibly, painfully off. That moment captured the problem better than any hot take could. When you're so locked into chasing engagement that you can't even respect the room you're sitting in, something has gone seriously wrong with the strategy.
Just saying, though, I'm a Drake
watched
fan,
him.
so,
Kendrick watched
during the battle, and then there's during battle, after battle.
Oh, okay. I think he's just, don't get mad at me, I think he's kind of corny, which is the biggest crime you can commit on the internet. I think he's a corny guy.
Who?
Drake. Is Drake not corny?
Don't put him in the spot, because this is now.
I believe Drake is himself, and that's why we love who he was. So if you think he's corny, you just don't like who he is as a person. I don't think he's corny. I think he's been vulnerable. I think he's made great songs, and I think he's a great rapper.
And no matter what he does, he cannot defeat the clip economy that has decided he hates Drake.
Yeah. Right now, I believe that people throw the corny on Drake because they have an archetype for a rapper. Mm-hmm. And so because they have this archetype in their brain of what a rapper's supposed to act like and look like and talk like.
But Drake plays that part, ironically.
But
he's very into the archetype.
But that's the mistake that he
I agree.
Right? He got baited in.
But that's what he feels is corny. You may not pinpoint it, but what I think you probably think is corny about Drake is that he plays the archetype of what a rapper is instead of.
But he didn't always do that, though. When we first met Drake, he was not doing this
Badman
rapper show. Like, you know what I mean? He wasn't talking about slime and gang and mob life and all that. He wasn't doing that.
They even floated the idea that DJ Academics only dislikes them because they called him out over his Trump support. But that framing conveniently leaves out a lot of history. The real tension between Academics and Ebro goes back much further than any political disagreement. Ebro reportedly attempted to blackball Academics years ago, specifically over an interview Academics did with Charlemagne the God. That's where the friction actually started. It had nothing to do with policy or principles. It had everything to do with Ebro's ego and his apparent belief that certain doors should stay closed to people who don't operate within his approval. Dressing that up as a political stance now doesn't rewrite what actually happened.
Along the timeline somewhere, he felt, either he started hanging out in that circle and he took on that, or people was playing with him a little bit. And he felt like if I act a little bit, what were you going to say, Lil? Huh?
Around the area when he signed Young Money. He's saying the Young Money era.
Whatever the era is. I just I think Drake became something that we didn't meet him as, and that was the critique that Kendrick used on
Also,
the
he's a
battle.
big stake affiliate, so those are my main ops too. I got so
what
many
is
ops.
Wait, tell me more.
Yeah, what's the stake
It's a
name?
crypto casino,
Right.
And they're not fond of me at all.
Why?
Why? Yeah.
Because I was very critical of them doing gambling ads on Twitch, and they got kicked off of Twitch. And I mean, the founders they're printing money. They're multi-billionaires at this point.
Of Steak or Twitch?
Steak.
Steak, got it.
And
then that's what they got kicked off Twitch. So they were like, all right, fuck you. We're gonna start our own competitive platform.
And what they start?
Kick.
And they started Kick.
Yeah. So they've never given up on that.
Well, so now I do critique Drake though, which is also why his fan base doesn't take kindly, right? Because what's this Aiden Ross thing we're doing, my guy? What is this?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Another one of my aunts.
Wait, in Ross and Up?
Every villain that you know on the internet has had a long and extended, protracted war against.
What about
me.
academics though? You ever battled with academics too?
Yes.
Wow,
Yo, Act don't like us either. Talk to us.
DJ Academics is, I mean, he's aligned with all of these like right wing shitheads. So of course
we saw him promoting Trump, and we were really like, yo,
we've had a conversation in the past where he was like, yeah, I watched Tim Pool and I watch you, and he didn't like fully grasp what my worldview was. There's a very famous line in that interview where he goes like, you're kind of sounding like a socialist, dangerously close to a socialist, my guy. That's what he said to me.
Dangerously close?
I was like, wow, yeah.
The pattern is clear enough. They were perfectly happy with academics when they thought there was something to gain from the relationship. The moment he started building his own lane independently, the tone shifted entirely, and suddenly he was a problem. That's not a principled stance. That's just how industry gatekeepers respond when someone stops needing them. And that's what makes this whole thing genuinely sad to watch. These aren't newcomers still trying to find their footing. These are people who earned real standing in this industry over decades, radio royalty by any reasonable measure. But the way they're operating right now, manufacturing outrage, chasing clip moments, picking fights with names bigger than their current reach, it reads like behavior from someone in their first month of streaming, desperately refreshing their analytics. The clip economy has moved on, and instead of evolving with it, they're throwing increasingly wild takes at the wall, hoping something sticks long enough to trend. The problem is, they can't even keep those takes consistent for 5 minutes before the internal contradictions start showing. So I want to hear from you. What do you think is really going on here? Is this a strategy, or has the self-awareness just completely left the building? Drop it in the comments.